Our top story tonight. So this means more vaccines will soon go into the arms of Georgians. The state will start receiving the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. And this is really good timing here, folks, as more people will be eligible starting next week. 11 Alive John Sherrick explains what's next for vaccines in Georgia. John.
Tomorrow, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp will announce his plans for the new Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine, revealing how and where the state is going to distribute it. He's expecting 83,000 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine will arrive in Georgia by next week and more later. But the governor is still warning that supplies of all three vaccines will still not be able to keep up with demand yet. So Georgia and other states are advising everyone, if and when you're able to get an appointment, take whichever vaccine you can get.
As a physician, I strongly urge everyone in America to get the first vaccine that is available to you when it is your turn.
Dr. Marcela Nunez-Smith is chair of the Health Equity Task Force.
If people want to opt for one vaccine over another, they may have to wait. Time is of the essence. Getting vaccinated saves lives.
I don't want people to try to pick and choose.
Atlanta physician Dr. Frida Fisher points out the research that shows the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine is 100% effective at preventing hospitalizations and deaths. And it does that in one dose, not two like the others, making it potentially more available to more people faster.
Which really helps because, especially in underserved communities, in communities where people cannot afford to take off multiple work days, or in populations where they have trouble traveling and getting to vaccination sites.
The expectation in Georgia is that as supplies of all three vaccines increase, they will not only eventually meet the demand, but knock out the virus and all its mutations.